when US President Donald Trump announced that the White House needed a large new ballroom. He claimed that for more than 150 years, every president has dreamt of a ballroom at the White House, and now he was honoring that dream at zero cost to the American taxpayer. The project, a roughly 90,000 square foot space to accommodate nearly 1,000 guests, built on the eastern side of the estate. Then the demolition announcement scheme. The East Wing, the Roosevelt-era annex built in 1942. The entrance for public tours, the offices of First Ladies, the icon of the People's House, was going to be torn down within days to make way for the ballroom. Pictures emerged of excavators ripping into the facade. Historic preservationists and other critics cried alarm. They're destroying that history forever, they said. So why does demolition of the East Wing matter? Because the White House is not just a residence. It's a symbol of the presidency of the US as a democratic republic of institutional continuity. To rip out a historic wing in order to build a gilded ballroom is to communicate that someone is rewriting that symbolism and history itself. It's a shift from the president among equals to the president in grandeur, from the public service ideal to pageantry and spectacle. In architecture and politics, the physical form often mirrors power. A grand ballroom, able to host 1,000 dignitaries, donors, heads of state, vastly larger than the old East Room, is a staging of power beyond mere function. Trump himself said, and I quote, "They wanted a ballroom for 150 years and I'm giving that honor to this wonderful place." That phrasing, "I'm giving that honor," carries the tone of patronage of one individual bestowing grandeur rather than an institution evolving.
Well, certain areas are being left. We determined that after really a tremendous amount of study with some of the best architects in the world, we determined that really knocking it down, trying to use a little section. You know, the East Wing was not much. There was not much left from the original. It was over the course of 100 years, it was changed. The columns were removed, and it was a much different building. Then a story was added on in 1948, 1949. There was a story added on, which was not particularly nice. And the building was very, very much changed from what it was originally. It was never thought of as being much. It was a very small building. And rather than allowing that to hurt a very expensive, beautiful building that, frankly, they've been after for years. You have that. I brought these along so people could see, but
Seen another way, the move signals consolidation of power. Decisions on the new structure are being expedited. The construction of the building has begun before a full review by regulatory bodies and the Advisory Commission. The National Capital Planning Commission, led by a Trump appointee, says the demolition does not need its permission. The message? The presidency can act independently, bypassing historic review, public oversight, even tradition. Enter the nationwide No Kings protests held on the 18th of October across all 50 American states, with millions participating under banners like "No thrones, no crowns, no kings." The protesters argue that the Trump administration is exhibiting monarch-like behavior, using executive power unilaterally, deploying federal forces into states, overriding local and judicial constraints, and now remodeling the seat of power itself as if it were personal property. When asked, Trump said, "They're referring to me as a king. I'm not a king." But the imagery and architecture tell a different story. Tearing down a part of the People's House, building a grand hall for the few, bypassing oversight, self-funding, but shadow-connected to large contractors. Critics say this is monarchic symbolism, not monarchy in the legal sense, but monarchy in effect. Singular ruler, unchecked domain, personal legacy.
And yet, Republicans remain on vacation for the fourth consecutive week. Donald Trump is once again preparing to fly out of the country. The East Wing of the White House is being demolished so that Donald Trump can construct a ballroom where he will be celebrated like a king. And at the same time, Trump is trying to rob taxpayers of $230 million to continue to line his pockets. And yet Republicans have zero interest, none, in addressing the healthcare crisis that they've created, which is devastating people all across the country.
By reshaping the White House's built environment, its wings, its offices, its entrance geometry, Trump is reshaping the institutional presidency itself. A grand ballroom for elite events is a stage for power, for donors, for global heads of state, and for spectacle. Meanwhile, historic wings of public access and First Lady offices are being displaced. The White House becomes, in effect, his mansion as ruler-in-chief. The rapid demolition and low transparency suggest an erosion of checks. Tradition, preservation, review, public tours are suspended. Critics fear that the physical transformation is matched by institutional transformation. The presidency becomes more personalized, less accountable, more about legacy than service. The No Kings protests reflect the public recognition of this shift. The protesters see not just policy disagreements but a structural transformation of government, the use of state apparatus for personalized grandeur. The fact that millions showed up for these protests signals that many Americans believe the presidency is deviating from its Republican foundations. The demolition of the East Wing is thus both symbolic and real. The architectural change mirrors and augments the political change. The protesters' banner, No Kings, doesn't demand literal abolition of monarchy, but rather a reassertion of democracy, of accountability, of no man being above the institutions. In tearing down the historic East Wing and building a massive ballroom, Trump is making a statement. The presidency is not simply government by law and constitution, it's also grandeur, display, personal legacy. That in itself is not unprecedented. Previous presidents have renovated the White House. But the scale, the symbolism, the timing, the bypassing of review, these raise red flags about whether this is an institutional evolution or an individual consolidation of power. While President Trump does not literally wear a crown, for many, the demolition and reconstruction of a major part of the White House are a powerful metaphor for the accumulation of power, the reshaping of institutions into extensions of the individual, and that is precisely what the protesters mean by No Kings.